Throughout the world, there are millions of different churches, but some of those churches are very crazy, is the word. So some of them that you might have heard of is the Westboro Baptist Church, or the church that hates everybody. But before the Westboro Church was established, there was an even crazier church. It's called the People's Church, and Jim Jones established it in 1956. In Annapolis, Indiana, he started a racially integrated church, and he was very proud of his rainbow family because him and his wife adopted several kids of different descents. He was very into helping others. He went and he started homeless shelters, he helped drug addicts on the street, but he eventually decided that Indianapolis was not accepting enough of his church, so he decided to move his entire church to Northern California. He was also a little bit paranoid, so he had read that Northern California was the least likely place for nuclear attacks. So him and about 65 families moved to Northern California to restart the People's Church. He was a very unbalanced man because he was taking multiple drugs, which caused him hallucinations and to become even more paranoid. So even though from the outside it looked like his church was a success, it was just turning into a cult centered around Jim Jones. People started not only pledging their allegiance to him, but also all of their money, all of their possessions. Some even signed over custody of their children to Jones. As the years went on, Jim Jones became even more erratic, and he mandated that people call him either father or dad. As the years went on, he became known, he required to be called Christ, and then even in his later years, he claimed that he was God himself. The drugs started was assumed that he could stay up to get more done, but it just increased his paranoia. So after a few years in California, he bought a plot of land in Guyana because he decided that the United States, the CIA, and the FBI couldn't come and get him in Guyana. So he moved his entire church, once again, to Guyana's jungles to create a utopian community. But the families of some of the people who went with him quickly realized that he was holding them hostage and that they weren't allowed to leave, even if they wanted to. So the United States sent down Congressman Leo Ryan to go investigate, and soon enough, Jones got hold of this and sent out a party and murdered Congressman Ryan. Soon after, like hours later, he convinced everyone in his church to perform a revolutionary suicide and drink cyanide-laced grape Flavor-Aid. And that's where the saying, "Don't drink the Kool-Aid" comes from. It was the largest revolutionary suicide ever, and later that day, November 18th, 1978, Jones was found with a gunshot wound to the head. Now, it's not clear if this wound was self-inflicted or if somebody else shot him, but regardless, the entire community died. One of the churches that you might have heard more about is the Westboro Baptist Church. They have on their website, which is godhatesfags.com, they claim to be an old-school Baptist church, and they preach against all form of sin, like fornication, adultery, including divorce and remarriage, and sodomy. They say that they just have peaceful demonstrations against gays. They hold signs that say, "Thank God for September 11th, pray for more dead soldiers, fag troops, fags hate God, God blew up the troops, God hates America, and the world is doomed," among others. And also, on their page, they give statistics about how many soldiers God has killed in Afghanistan, about 6,000. Pickets conducted by them, about 50,000. The number of people that God has saved from the flood, 8. But I don't know what flood they're talking about because they like to twist the Bible verses around. And the nanoseconds of sleep the Westboro Church members lose over opinions, 0. Because they're a little crazy. Now, there are also people who have anti-Westboro Baptist Church, which I have a sign. God hates Farmville. For homophobic protesters, your signs are pretty gay. That's the type of signs that theirs usually are, the rainbow flag. Toto, you're not in Kansas anymore. My sign is bigger than your sign, and God hates signs. The Westboro Baptist Church has been charged on multiple accounts of disturbing the peace, but they always get out of it because they're technically within their First Amendment rights. So the Westboro Church just does what they want. Closer to home, there's a church in this area that's an Assembly of God church. I'm not going to say which one it is in case anybody goes to it, but one of their youth group activities, they did a persecution exercise. So they came into youth group one day, turned off all the lights, zip-tied the kids' hands, put pillowcases over their heads, and threw them in the back of the church van and did donuts around the parking lot. Then they took them to the parsonage and made it seem like their youth pastor was being brutally beaten. Later they came out and they said that, you know, this is just an exercise. This is what missionaries go through in other worlds, and like this was just to show you how missionaries live. A few days later, one of the child's mothers complained, and Andrew Jordan, the youth pastor, and both the church were charged for false imprisonment and something else. And yeah, that is being decided upon now, so we'll check back up on that later. And that's Crazy Churches for now.